Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive deep into some police commissioner interviews.
Oh, yeah, these are always fun.
We've got some seriously cool stuff from RoleCatcher today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like they even mapped out the whole career path thing
Uh-huh.
from starting out as a rookie cop all the way to the top
It's quite a
to
journey.
become commissioner. It's pretty wild how much goes into it.
It is. It's really interesting how every single step builds on the one before it. Like,
Hmm.
you start as a patrol officer, you move up to sergeant, then lieutenant, and so on. So by the time you hit that commissioner level, you've got this huge well of experience to tap into.
Yeah, yeah. And talking about experience, RoleCatcher, their AI stuff is amazing. Like
Yeah.
analyzing those job descriptions, tailoring resumes and cover letters, you really got to hand it to them.
It's like a total game changer, especially in such a competitive job market. Having that edge that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Right, exactly, exactly. But okay, let's get to what everyone wants to know. How do you nail those interview questions?
The big ones, yeah.
RoleCatcher actually pulled out the top 10 questions you're most likely to get asked.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
are you ready to dive into these?
Let's do it. And you know what? You'll be so surprised because RoleCatcher takes it beyond just the surface level. It really makes you think about, like, your experiences, your vision for law enforcement, you know?
Oh, I love that. Okay, so question number one, straight out the gate. What motivated you to pursue a career in law enforcement?
The big why.
Right. And they really emphasize it's about finding your why, like what drives you.
Absolutely. And this is where you can really let your authenticity shine through. Was
Mm,
it about, wanting justice, a desire to give back to your community, whatever it is, think about how that connects back to the role of police commissioner.
yeah.
How do those values, those core values you have, how will they guide your leadership?
Totally. And this is where I think RoleCatcher's AI is just like blows my mind.
Yeah.
You can actually, you put in your answer to that question and you get personalized feedback. Like
Wow.
they help you refine it, make sure it's really you coming through.
That's wild. It's like having your own personal interview coach,
Yeah.
just like right there.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, ready for question number two?
Hit me.
Okay, so it's how do you stay current with the latest trends and issues in law enforcement?
Oh, that's a good one.
This one's all about showing, that you're dedicated to constantly learning.
Absolutely.
They say it's not enough to just say, oh, I read the news,
Right,
right?
right.
You got to talk about like specific journals, conferences, those training programs you've done,
Yeah.
stuff that shows you're really in the loop, in this constantly changing world of law enforcement.
Right, because it is changing all the time. You got to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is a great follow-up question. What's a recent development in policing that made you really rethink what you thought you knew? And how have you, taken that new perspective and used it in your own approach?
Yeah.
Because that shows you're willing to learn and change and grow.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so question number three, here we go. This one goes, how do you handle conflicts within your department? And this one role catcher, they're not messing around.
Right.
They're talking about showcasing your leadership skills, showing you can like effectively resolve disputes, even in those really intense situations that need like a steady hand.
Exactly. You got to have a good example ready to go for this one. Like, who detail the whole conflict, who was involved, their perspectives, what steps you took to mediate this situation, and then what was the outcome. What you want to show here is that you can, manage different viewpoints, find that common ground, and really put the well-being of the entire department first.
For sure. And it's a good way to like really dig deeper into that.
Where this is going.
Think about it. Reflecting on that experience, what specific leadership qualities did you draw upon to successfully resolve that conflict? And how did that whole thing, how did it actually change or shape how you manage like those interpersonal dynamics within a team?
Ooh, yeah, that's good. That really gets at the core of your leadership style, and it shows self-awareness, which is so important, especially when you're in a position of leadership.
Right. Self-awareness. Got to have it. Okay, question 4. Buckle up. How do you ensure the safety and well-being of your officers?
Yeah, big one.
Big one.
Yeah.
And they're not just talking about handing out equipment here.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of support.
Absolutely. This is about your approach to training, mental health resources, de-escalation tactics, things that show you get it, you understand the challenges officers face every day. Remember, you've been there. You've walked in those shoes.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
important. And to really drive that point home, here's a follow-up question. Beyond just the equipment and training, what specific initiatives would you put in place to create that culture of support, that psychological safety within the department?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Because this is about going above and beyond, creating a department where officers feel valued and supported. That's the key.
Absolutely. Okay, on to question number 5. We're on a roll. What strategies do you use to build trust and positive relationships with the community?
Community Policing 101.
Right. This is where you really bring in your experience with community policing. Talk about those initiatives you've been a part of, citizen academies, neighborhood watch programs, anything that shows your commitment to building those bridges, right?
It's about showing them that you don't just see the community as, separate, but as a partner in all of this.
100%. And here's another layer to think about. Follow-up question. How would you go about building trust with a community that, historically hasn't had the best relationship with law enforcement?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That requires empathy, acknowledging past mistakes. It's about rebuilding that trust through transparency and accountability. Those are key.
This next question, it's like it gets right into it. Question number 6. How do you balance the needs of the community with, the whole law enforcement side of things?
Yeah, it's that classic balancing act, right? And as police commissioner, you've got to be ready for that. You have to make tough calls, sometimes with priorities that are like pulling in opposite directions. It's super helpful to have a specific example ready to go, like a time when you had to really weigh those needs, think about all the different factors, and then how did you actually make that decision? What was the process?
Yeah, totally. It's those judgment calls.
Yeah.
They can really make or break you as a leader. All right, how about this for a follow-up, just to really see how you think on your feet? Can you talk about a time when you had to make a really hard decision, a decision that actually got pushback from both sides,
Yeah.
the community and people within the department? Talk about pressure.
Whoa, yeah, that's a real test right there.
Yeah.
And you know what? Speaking of tough situations, question number 7 tackles a big one. How do you handle it when officers are accused of misconduct?
RoleCatcher's not shying away from the hard-hitting stuff, huh?
Nope.
This question just screams the importance of transparency, accountability, all that within the department. What you need to get across is that you've got, rock-solid policies and procedures in place ready to go to investigate these situations. You got to make sure it's thorough, it's fair, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. It's not just about, taking some kind of action, right? It's about making sure those actions are actually proportionate to what happened. They're transparent so everyone can see what's going on and that it all aligns with, due process. Got to protect everyone involved.
Absolutely. And here's something else to consider, a follow-up to really make them think. Beyond just, taking disciplinary action, what steps would you take to tackle those systemic issues, the ones that might be contributing to misconduct in the first place? Because sometimes you got to look deeper, right? Misconduct, it's often a symptom of something bigger going on within the department.
100%. This is about getting ahead of the curve, being proactive, about creating a culture of accountability from the ground up. It's about doing the work to make sure things are done ethically the right way.
Totally. Okay, moving on. Let's talk diversity. Question 8 throws this at you. How do you make sure your department is inclusive? How do you build a diverse team? I mean, this is huge.
Couldn't agree more. It's not enough to just talk the talk, right? You got to back it up with action, with real-world examples. This is where you talk about your track record with recruitment, with training, with reaching out to the community. How are you actually breaking down those barriers and opening doors for everyone?
Right. You want a department that mirrors the community it serves, right? Diversity in all its forms. And here's a follow-up to, push that idea even further. How would you make sure that the diversity in your department, it's not just about the numbers, but it's reflected in leadership roles, in who gets to make the decisions? That's where the real change happens.
Totally agree. When you have diverse voices at the table at every level, that's when you see real progress. Okay, ready for question 9? This one's all about accountability. How do you make sure your department is accountable to the community it serves?
Big question.
For sure. Transparency is absolutely key here. Talk about things like having a citizen review board, using body-worn cameras, those open data initiatives, showing people what's going on. It's all about proving to the community that you're not trying to hide anything, that you're operating in the open.
You're building that trust.
Okay.
But here's a curveball for you, just to see how you handle it. Let's say you've got this sensitive information. Releasing it would be all about transparency, right? But it could also mess up an ongoing investigation or even put public safety at risk. How do you navigate that? Tough call.
Talk about a rock and a hard place. That's where you really have to weigh those competing priorities. You have to be able to ensure accountability, but also protect the investigation's integrity and make sure everyone stays safe. It's a delicate balance for sure.
For sure. Okay, last but not least, question number 10. This one's crucial. How do you deal with situations where your officers are struggling, maybe with mental health stuff or even substance abuse?
This one's all about compassion, about making sure those officers have the support they need. This is where you talk about your department's resources for mental health, things like peer counseling, substance abuse treatment, all of that. It's about creating that safe space, where officers can ask for help without feeling like they'll be judged or penalized.
Exactly. It's got to be a culture where asking for help is seen as strength, not a weakness.
Yeah.
And here's one final follow-up, just to really cement your commitment to officer well-being. Beyond just offering those resources, how would you actually tackle that stigma that's still unfortunately attached to mental health, especially within law enforcement? How do you create that shift where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength, not something to be ashamed of?
It's about changing the whole conversation, right? Recognizing that getting help takes courage, it takes self-awareness, and those are qualities that any good police officer needs. You gotta walk the walk.
You said it.
Yeah.
And you know what? It all ties back to those leadership qualities we were talking about earlier.
It all goes back to those career stages, right?
It's true. It's like you can really see how those early days, when you're out there patrolling, responding to those calls, how that shapes the decisions you'll make later on as commissioner. It's all connected.
Totally. You can't replace that kind of experience, that firsthand knowledge. It's what makes you a leader who gets it, who can make those tough calls, but also, lead with empathy.
100%. So whether you're just starting out in your career or you've been at it for years, there's always something new to learn, a fresh perspective to consider.
Always.
And that's where I think RoleCatcher really shines. Their AI platform, especially those resume and interview prep tools,
Yeah.
game changers, for sure. They can really give you an edge.
Oh, yeah. It's like having this secret weapon. It helps you show off your experience, your insights in a way that really clicks with those hiring managers.
No doubt about it. So we've covered a ton today. We really wanted to give you the knowledge, the tools to really rock that police commissioner interview.
Right. Go in there confident, with a clear vision.
Exactly. We talked about everything from what it really takes to do the job to nailing those tough interview questions.
And don't forget about always learning, always growing, and staying connected to what's really going on in policing, even at the top. Those insights are gold.
So true. As you get ready for this next chapter, this next step, we want to leave you with something to think about. It's from the RoleCatcher Guide, and it really stuck with me.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Right. So here's the question. What kind of legacy do you want to build as police commissioner? Let that really sink in.
That's deep.
Right? It's not just about getting the job. It's about what you do with it. It's about your vision for law enforcement, for your community.
Powerful stuff.
So listeners, we want to hear from you. What really resonated with you today? What are you taking with you into those interviews? Share your thoughts, your experiences, any burning questions you have. We're all about learning here at The Deep Dive, and that includes learning from you. Until next time, keep diving deep.